Most people think they know the story of Three's Company. They remember the laughs, the misunderstandings, and the bond between the cast. But there's a side of that show that never made it on screen.
Well, you're certainly one of the warmest applause tracks I've ever appeared before.
Adored by fans and friends alike.
John's superpower was to be kind.
John would do anything for you.
Now, Joyce DeWitt is speaking openly about her working relationship with John Ritter.
He was an ABC star in the 70s, and he became an ABC star again in the 2000s.
He needed to keep his health up.
John lived his life on the edge. He was plagued.
And hid a deadly secret.
My father once told us, don't let people know you're sick.
The 54-year-old was rushed to a nearby hospital after falling ill on the set of his new sitcom.
And it went downhill extremely quickly.
Just like that magic trick where you light the paper that goes whoosh, and it's gone.
What she shares isn't about jokes or ratings. It's about moments that caused distance, things left unsaid, and feelings that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling.
I was staying at a hotel in Central Park South. John was staying in another hotel in Central Park South doing the upfronts for his then new series, 8 Simple Rules. So I'm walking, and here's this huge, massive paparazzi outside this hotel. And, you know, I mean, I've got on my sweats, I have on my sunglasses, I have no makeup, I have on tennis shoes. Click, click. And I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes, just, you know, don't make me look too hideous. And then, okay, thank you. And then, you know, I walk on. As I'm maybe 5 or 6 feet away from them, this voice says, you know, John's inside. And I turned around and I went, what? And he said it again. I went, no, I didn't. Oh. And I walk on another 8 or 10 steps, and I went, Joyce Ann, don't be an idiot. That's a message. So I turn around, I go back to my hotel. I call the hotel. I leave a message for Jonathan because, you know, there was no answer in his room. And I said, babe, it's Joyce, because he used to always call me baby. And I said, I don't know what your schedule's like. I just happen to be here. You're here. I don't know. Anyway, if there's time, call me, whatever. And as I'm walking out the door, the phone rings. And I pick it up, and it's Jonathan. He goes, baby, we got 3 parties and a dinner to do tonight. Pick you up at 7. And I went, wait a minute, what's the dress code? And he goes, nice casual. And I went, okay.
So you went out that night?
We did.
Oh, how fun.
Did all of these things. It was so delicious.
Was that the last time you saw him?
And a month later, he passed.
This is a closer look at Joyce DeWitt's perspective on John Ritter and how her memories change the way we see Three's Company today.
I think I really am positive. I think I got that from my mom and dad. My mom wakes up like this, hi, and she goes to sleep, good night.
If he walked into the room, you had to put on sunglasses because the radiation of his self would just like explode.
Jimmy Dean, the guy who sells those sausages, and I said, no, this is James Dean. Don't you know James Dean?
And when we all meet the greatest finger of all in the sky, I shall tell him I was only doing my job.
In early 1976, Fred Silverman had just stepped into his role as head of programming at ABC. He was looking for something bold enough to change the network's direction. While reviewing ideas, he came across a British sitcom called Man About the House. When the idea was simple but shocking for American television at the time, 2 single women sharing an apartment with a single man. Every major network had already passed on it, calling it too risky. But Silverman couldn't stop thinking about it. He had liked the concept back when he worked at CBS, and now he finally had the power to move forward with it. He contacted producers Don Taffner and Ted Bergman and asked them to adapt the show for American audiences. He wanted something new that could push limits the way All in the Family had done with social issues. Against the odds, the project was approved, but the first version almost took the show in a completely different direction. The initial writer, Peter Stone, was well known in Broadway circles. And he set the story in New York and turned the male lead into a chef at an upscale French restaurant. His 2 roommates were written as a secretary and a fashion model. The idea felt polished and flashy, but not very relatable. When Silverman read the script, he knew it missed the mark. It didn't feel like a story everyday viewers could see themselves in. Stone's version was dropped before cameras ever rolled. That early misstep made it clear how hard it would be to reshape a British sitcom for American TV. What they needed were characters and a setting that felt more realistic, something that made sense in a place like Santa Monica. That's when Larry Gelbart, best known for creating MASH, became involved. He wasn't excited about the concept at first and felt it lacked substance. Still, as a favor to Silverman, he agreed to take a look. And working with his son-in-law, Gary Merowitz, he helped develop a new version of the show. Merowitz came up with the title Three's Company. In this version, the male character was named David Bell, an aspiring filmmaker who also knew how to cook. He lived with Jenny, who worked at the DMV, and Samantha, an actress hoping for her big break. They shared an apartment in a building called the Hacienda Palms in North Hollywood. Gelbart didn't stay with the project for long, but his work helped shape the direction. His version made the idea feel more familiar to American viewers, while keeping its playful tone. Just one day before filming was set to begin, ABC ran into a serious issue. They had already shot 3 pilots, and none of the actresses playing Chrissy Snow felt right. Time was almost up. Fred Silverman was under heavy pressure. He sat down late with a pile of audition tapes and started fast-forwarding through them, not expecting much. Then, one tape stood out. It was Suzanne Summers. He remembered seeing her once on The Tonight Show. He rewound the tape and watched again, confused as to why she hadn't been selected. When he asked why she was passed over, no one had a clear answer. He made the call immediately. She was brought in, and the very next day, she was on set. With that choice, Chrissy Snow finally came together, and Suzanne Summers quickly became one of the most recognizable faces on television. She helped carry the show through 8 seasons and more than 170 episodes. If Silverman hadn't stayed late that night, the show's future could have looked very different. Suzanne's casting wasn't the only decision that nearly changed. Right before filming, producers began questioning John Ritter. They worried that his physical comedy might confuse viewers. Jack Tripper was supposed to pretend he was gay so he could live with 2 women, but some feared Ritter's performance might make audiences believe Jack actually was gay, which they thought would hurt the premise. The situation became serious enough that Silverman had to step in again. His response was firm. Ritter stays. That decision paid off. The same style of comedy that caused concern became the heart of the show. Ritter's falls, expressions, and timing turned him into a star. He later won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe. What once worried the producers ended up making the character work. Before Ritter officially landed the role, several actors were considered. Barry Van Dyke, the son of Dick Van Dyke, was one option. So Michael Lembeck was another, and would later direct episodes of Friends. Billy Crystal also auditioned. He didn't get the role, but that same year he found success on the show Soap. Even so, it's difficult to imagine anyone else as Jack Tripper. Ritter's timing, likability, and physical comedy made the character memorable. The cast didn't succeed by luck alone. They also stood up for themselves. Just 6 episodes into the series, Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet, refused to say a line that insulted a prostitute character. She felt it didn't fit Janet's personality. The producer pushed back, but she stood her ground. John Ritter offered to say the line instead, but she wouldn't allow it. "Bring a gun," she said. "I still won't say it." Later, when ABC tried to back out of a promised raise, she didn't show up for work. Instead, she went straight to the network's top executive and explained that the issue wasn't just about pay, it was about fairness. She got the raise and earned respect, as someone who wouldn't be pushed around. At times, the network showed similar determination. When they wanted Audra Lindley to play Mrs. Roper, they learned she was already committed to a stage play in Los Angeles. Most networks would have replaced her. ABC didn't. They paid $8,000 to buy out the entire theater for one night so she could film the pilot. The gamble paid off. Lindley's chemistry with Norman Fell was so strong that the two later received their own spin-off, The Ropers. When Three's Company finally premiered on March 15, 1977, expectations were low. It was only meant to run for 6 episodes as a trial. Executives didn't expect much, but audiences felt differently. And the setup, a man pretending to be gay so he could live with 2 women, caught people's interest right away. The cast clicked, and the jokes landed. The first episode, titled A Man About the House, surprised everyone by ranking 28th for the week. And that was just the beginning. By the time the 6th episode aired on April 21st, the show had clearly taken off. It pulled in an average rating of 23.1, which placed it at number 11 for the entire 1976 to 1977 season. For a series brought in as a mid-season replacement, that level of success was almost unheard of. ABC didn't hesitate. The network renewed the show right away, confident they had a winner. When it returned in the fall, ABC gave it a prime spot on Tuesday nights, airing it right after Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. That decision paid off immediately. During the 1977 to 78 season, the show climbed to number 3 nationwide. Nearly 1 out of every 3 TV households was tuning in to Three's Company. The momentum continued the following year, when it moved up to number 2 with a massive 30.3 rating. But the growing popularity also brought backlash. The show's sexual humor angered several conservative groups. The PTA gave it poor ratings, and the National Federation for Decency launched a campaign urging advertisers to stop sponsoring the program. Some companies pulled their ads, but ABC stood firm. Instead of hurting the show, the criticism made people even more curious. The public arguments surrounding it only increased interest and pushed ratings higher. Behind the jokes and headlines, Three's Company also quietly changed how television portrayed family life. And it suggested that family didn't have to mean parents and children. It could simply be friends who stuck together. Jack, Janet, and Chrissy, and later Cindy and Terry, created their own household built on loyalty, humor, and shared messes. Their small Santa Monica apartment felt warm and chaotic, a place where friends acted more like siblings than roommates. That idea helped shape future shows like Friends and Will and Grace. Still, things weren't always calm behind the scenes. Richard Klein occasionally clashed with producers. During one run-through, he tried to start a serious discussion by saying, "I'd like to talk about my character." The response was swift. He was written out for 4 weeks. The message was clear. Creative control rested firmly with the producers. In 1978, the cast appeared on the cover of Newsweek for a feature about sex on television. What should have been a career highlight quickly became awkward. The magazine posed the actors in a suggestive way, and none of them had been warned that it would be framed like that. John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt were shocked. They believed the article would focus on comedy, not sexuality. Ritter later said the experience created an uneasy mood on set. DeWitt was upset as well, and even Suzanne Summers admitted she had no idea the photo shoot would be presented that way. The cover stirred tension within the cast and shifted how critics and audiences viewed the show. What the actors saw as playful physical comedy was now being marketed as something much more sexual. Even the theme song almost ended up sounding very different. Early on, Producers wanted the three lead actors to sing it themselves. That idea didn't work. Joe Raposo, who wrote Come and Knock on Our Door, later said they tried, but singing just wasn't their strength. The producers then brought in Ray Charles, not the famous singer behind Georgia on My Mind, but a television vocalist with the same name. After about an hour of recording, they asked him what he thought. He paused and said, "I'm not sure." They laughed and replied, "We are. We like your version." That decision led to Ray Charles and Julia Rinker Miller becoming the voices of the theme song. They were backed by top session musicians, including Hal Blaine on drums and Tommy Tedesco on guitar, with Raposo playing saxophone. The result was one of the most recognizable opening themes in television history. At the same time, Suzanne Summers was making serious moves off-camera. During the first season, she handed over her entire paycheck from the first 6 episodes to her manager, Jay Bernstein. Her instructions were direct: make me famous, or the money means nothing. At that point, Three's Company was still just a mid-season experiment, and its future was uncertain. But Summers was already thinking long-term. Bernstein had helped turn Farrah Fawcett into a household name, and Summers wanted the same result. Within a year, she appeared on 55 magazine covers. Her face was everywhere. Bernstein later said he didn't initially see her as especially beautiful or talented, but he noticed her determination. He said, "I hadn't seen that kind of drive since Sammy Davis Jr." Suzanne had taken a huge gamble on herself, and it worked. She went from an unknown actress to one of the most recognizable figures on television. By the late 1970s, Three's Company was among the biggest shows on TV. But while audiences laughed at what they saw on screen, something unfair was happening with pay behind the scenes. John Ritter, the lead star, earned $150,000 per episode. Suzanne Summers, who played Chrissy Snow and drew a massive audience, was paid only $30,000. Joyce DeWitt earned the same amount. Suzanne attracted a large female audience between 18 and 49, the age group advertisers wanted most. Even so, she earned just 1/5 of Ritter's salary. When she first joined the show, she was simply grateful to have steady work. As a single mother trying to support her son, the job felt like a lifeline. Her starting pay of $3,500 a week seemed enormous to her at the time. As the show grew, her salary rose to $30,000 per episode. Still, she couldn't ignore the gap. Male stars like Alan Alda from MASH and Carol O'Connor from All in the Family were earning 6 figures every week. The difference was huge and impossible to dismiss. By 1980, as Three's Company entered its 5th season, Suzanne Summers decided it was time to speak up. She asked for equal pay. She wasn't asking for more than John Ritter, just the same $150,000 per episode, along with 10% of the profits. Before talks began, she spoke with her co-stars. "If you support me, we all benefit," she told them. "I'll take the blame." Her husband, Alan Hamel, who had television experience, handled the negotiations. He warned her that the outcome might not be what she hoped for. Suzanne believed the network would never risk removing Chrissy from the show. That assumption turned out to be wrong. A BC didn't negotiate with her at all. They shut the conversation down immediately. Executives asked her, "Who do you think you are?" and made it clear that John Ritter was the real star. The only offer they put on the table was a minor raise, just $5,000 more per episode. Suzanne rejected it, and from that moment, the situation spiraled. What she didn't realize was how badly the timing worked against her. Around the same period, Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams from Laverne and Shirley had pushed for higher pay and succeeded. That fight left ABC frustrated, and they were determined not to let another actress challenge the pay structure. According to Alan Hamel, and the network felt someone needed to be punished to send a message. Suzanne became the obvious choice. She wasn't officially labeled the lead, and executives believed the show could survive without Chrissy. So they decided to remove her. But they didn't stop there. Instead of ending her contract right away, they cut her screen time down to about 1 minute per episode. She filmed by herself on a separate set, pretending to speak on the phone with the others. She wasn't allowed near the rest of the cast. A security guard escorted her everywhere, making it feel like she had done something wrong. Her co-stars, people she had worked beside for years, began avoiding her. Producers told them she was selfish and trying to damage the show, and many accepted that story. Suzanne was left completely alone. The friendships disappeared, and so did her career momentum. She couldn't land meetings, auditions, or interviews. She later said, "I was fired from the #1 show at the peak of my career, and I couldn't even get an interview." For years, she was shut out of the industry, all because she asked for equal pay. When Suzanne exited the show in 1981, the balance changed immediately. The producers rushed to fill the gap and brought in Jenna Lee Harrison as Cindy Snow, Chrissy's cousin. The switch happened too fast, and viewers didn't warm up to the new character. Cindy tried to copy Chrissy's silliness, but it came off forced. Ratings fell quickly. The show dropped from the top 10 down to 20th place. Writers also struggled with Cindy's role. They didn't know how to use her, so she often faded into the background. Within months, so it was clear another change was needed. New auditions followed. One of the actresses who read for the role was Heather Locklear. She was nervous and worried about sweat showing, so she tucked tissues under her arms. During her audition, one slipped out and fell to the floor. The room erupted in laughter. She kept going, but never forgot that moment. She didn't get the part, but not long after, she found major success on Dynasty and Melrose Place. Eventually, producers cast Priscilla Barnes as Terry Alden, a confident nurse meant to stabilize the cast. Behind the scenes, though, the atmosphere was strict. Producers demanded control over everything. They asked her to change her hair color. She was weighed weekly. Wardrobe choices were made without her input, even when she felt uncomfortable. Barnes later said her 3 years on the show felt miserable, but she stayed through the final season in 1984. At the same time, writers worked hard to recover the humor that disappeared when Chrissy left. Much of the comedy had relied on her timing and delivery. They shifted more of that responsibility to John Ritter. He was talented, but carrying every laugh alone wasn't realistic. So the show leaned heavily on Don Knotts as Mr. Furley. His reactions and confusion became the main source of humor. He kept the laughs coming, but the tone of the show had changed, and the energy wasn't the same. Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet, noticed the shift as well. She hoped her character would grow, maybe open a flower shop or move toward bigger goals. The producers refused to explore anything new. They stuck to the same formulas. So in the final episode, Janet was written into a marriage, something Joyce felt didn't fit the independent woman she had portrayed from the start. Audience numbers continued to fall. By the last season, the show had lost more than 20% of its viewers. Critics pointed out the decline in quality. ABC considered canceling it early, but allowed a short final season so it could reach the episode count needed for syndication. Norman Fell, who played Mr. Roper, never wanted to leave Three's company. He enjoyed the role and the success, but in 1979, producers asked him to star in a spin-off called The Ropers. He hesitated, worried it wouldn't last. Producers promised that if the spin-off failed after 1 season, he and Audra Lindley could return to the original show. The promise was put in writing. With that guarantee, Norman agreed. Oh, at first, it looked like the right move. The first season of The Ropers performed well and landed in the top 10. Then ABC moved it to Saturday night, a weak slot. Ratings dropped fast. Norman asked the network to move it back, but they refused. In May 1980, ABC canceled the show, just 1 month after the return agreement expired. Norman believed the timing was intentional, so they wouldn't have to bring the Ropers back. By then, producers also didn't want two landlords on the show, since Don Knotts had taken over that role. Norman and Audra appeared in one final guest episode in March 1981. After that, their story on the show was over. Later on, another unexpected moment came up. During the final season, Joyce DeWitt walked into a room and, by chance, uncovered secret auditions for a new spin-off called Three's a Crowd. They were testing actresses to play Jack Tripper's new romantic partner. What stunned her most was learning that John Ritter already knew about the spin-off and had never mentioned it to the rest of the cast. When Joyce spoke up about what she had seen, everything shifted. The mood on set changed, and the sense of trust that once held the group together disappeared. Not long after that, another surprise followed. Suzanne Summers, who had been let go years earlier, made an attempt to come back. Her husband, Alan Hamill, reached out and pushed for Suzanne to be cast as Jack's wife in the new spin-off. It could have been a major moment, but the producers weren't interested. They had already chosen Mary Caderet to play Jack's girlfriend. That closed the door on Suzanne's return. Neither the Ropers nor Three's a Crowd managed to capture what made the original show work. The Ropers lost its appeal once the couple moved into an upscale neighborhood, which removed the friction that made them funny. Being placed in a Saturday time slot only added to its problems. Three's a Crowd struggled even more. The writers couldn't agree on how much Jack should change now that he was in a serious relationship. The tone felt wrong. On top of that, the show had to go up against the A-Team, which was hugely popular at the time. Most of all, the original group was gone, and with them went the chemistry that viewers loved. ABC wanted to continue with one more short season, but John Ritter refused unless the network committed to a full run. They wouldn't agree, so the show came to an end. Years later, Joyce DeWitt reflected on the experience and chose not to dwell on the disputes. Instead, she thought about the audience. Fans often told her the show helped them through hard moments and gave them a sense of comfort. Over time, she realized Three's Company wasn't just about laughs. It was about friendship, reassurance, and feeling less alone. Then came one last surprise. In 2003, just a month before John Ritter passed away, he suddenly called Suzanne Summers. They hadn't spoken in over 2 decades. He opened the call by saying, "Hey, babe," and followed it with, "I forgive you." Suzanne was stunned. She wanted to respond with, "You forgive me?" But she didn't say it. During the conversation, John invited her to appear on his show 8 Simple Rules, in a dream scene alongside Joyce. Suzanne declined and suggested they work together on a different project instead. They agreed to look for something better, but it never happened. John died suddenly from a heart condition at the age of 54. It was devastating, but Suzanne later said she was thankful they had reconnected before the end. If you've stayed until now, thank you for giving your time to this story. If you want more videos that look at what really went on behind classic TV shows, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe.